What's up, beautiful people of the internet? It's your favorite internet tailor, and in this video I'm going to show you how to draft a lapel jacket pattern. Let's get into it, okay? So I'm starting with my pattern paper, and my working length for this pattern is 26 inches. So, and this is my bust point at 8 inches and my half blouse at 16 inches, okay? You guys, I'm not feeling well, so my voice is a little shaky. Just bear with me. Now, to map out the lapel collar, where we're going to draft the lapel collar, I went ahead to mark out 3 inches and I connected the markings with a straight line, okay, because we want to mark out where the lapel collar will be first. Then after that, I went ahead to mark my neck width. So I marked my neck width and my neck depth at 3 inches. And after doing this, I went ahead to connect my markings together, okay, to get my neckline. So after drawing my neckline, you can see how I drew the neckline, nice and simple. I went ahead to mark my shoulder point, okay. So I marked my shoulder point at the top and also at my bust point so that everything will be even, and I drew a straight line. I also went ahead to insert my shoulder slant, okay, at 1/2 inch. I marked circumference of my bust divided by 4 plus 1 inch, and I went ahead to insert my armhole curve, okay. So whatever measurement you're taking for your bust, for your waist, and also for your hips at the hem, you want to make sure you add 1 inch ease allowance, okay. So let's say if circumference of my bust divided by 4 is 10, I'm going to mark 11 so that I have my ease allowance, okay. So which is what I did here, and I connected my markings together, okay. So now the next thing I went ahead to do is, from the top, I went ahead to mark my dart point for the front part of this jacket, and I marked 9.5 inches. So from that 9.5 inch mark, okay, the next thing I went ahead to do was I marked 4 inches for my dart point, okay, and I connected my markings together. I know you guys will be confused. Just know that where the dart point is starting from is where your nipple point is starting from, okay. So at the hem, I went ahead to mark 1/2 inch on both sides, and I connected my markings together. So from the dart point to the hem, I just drew a triangular line to get my dart perimeter, if there's any word like that. But you guys understand. I went ahead to insert my dart, and this is what we have here, guys. So after inserting my dart, from that point, from the top at my armhole point, at my shoulder point, I went ahead to mark 3 inches because I want to insert the princess dart for this lapel jacket, okay. So I connected that 3-inch point to my dart point. I made sure I extended the princess dart line outwards, okay, because when you're sewing a princess dart, by the time you turn over, you're going to have excess, so you need to extend the line by at least 1 inch and connect that 1 inch extension back to your armhole so that when you are done cutting and sewing, everything will lap, okay. So which is what I did here, right? So the next thing, I extended that part by 1 inch, remember. Yeah, so the next thing I went ahead to do now, after connecting my princess dart to my dart point, I went ahead to add back that. You guys know that we're going to cut out those points, you know, that area out of the dart. So I went back to add it back to the pattern so everything is precise. Then I went ahead to add 1 inch sewing allowance, okay. I went ahead to add 1 inch sewing allowance. So after adding 1 inch sewing allowance, the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect my markings together. It's just very simple, guys. I connected my markings together. Remember that at the hem, you're going to take your circumference of your hips divided by 4, okay. Now the next thing I went ahead to do is, I want this blazer to, at the hem, you know, the front part where my button is going to be, I want it to be a little rounded. So I went in by 1.5 inch, and at my half blouse point, I came out by 1 inch because I need allowance for my button, okay, and I connected the markings together from the 1.5 inch mark at the hem to the 1 inch mark at the half blouse. You can see we're having that slanted line going on there, guys. And the next thing I went ahead to do now is from the top I marked 3.5 inches, okay, 3.5 inches, because you want the lapel to be a little slanted. I didn't mark 3 inches, which I used for the neck depth. Okay, I marked 3.5 inches when it got to the lapel collar part, and you can see we have a beautiful slant going on there. Then I connected that point to my half blouse point. Okay, so I connected it to my half blouse point with a slanted line, and guys, see, this is the way to get your lapel collar right, the way I learned from my mom. Okay, so now I told you guys I wanted the hem to be a little rounded. I just went back in with my French curve and I just gave it, you know, that rounded feel I wanted it to have. And I erased, you know, that line is no longer part of, for that bottom part, that line is no longer part of the pattern, so I just erased it. And guys, this is what we have going on here. Now the next thing I went ahead to do, this is what the front pattern looks like. I went ahead to, you know, highlight it with my marker so you guys see it very well. You see what's going on here. And the one thing you must do is you want to make sure you're tagging your pattern. So I tagged number 1, number 2. I also went ahead to write F1, F for the front, that's so you know it's the front part, and F2, that's part 1 and part 2 for the front part. Then I went ahead to cut the pieces, and this is what the front part of a lapel jacket looks like. Okay, so this is what the front part looks like. Now it's time to draft the back pattern. For the back pattern, I have my bust point, I have my half blouse, okay, and the length of this pattern paper as well is 26 inches. Now the first thing I went ahead to do was to mark out my zip allowance. Even though we're not going to add zip, this is just like a joining allowance for the back part of this lapel jacket, and it also helps to give it shape and fit, okay, at the back. So after marking it out, I went ahead to tag it zip allowance because I didn't want to confuse you guys. Next I went ahead to do was I marked 1 inch for neck depth. Okay, I marked 1 inch for neck depth. You also want to extend that 1 inch mark to your zip allowance. I also went ahead to mark my neck width at 3 inches. Okay, after marking my neck width at 3 inches, I just went ahead to use my pencil and I drew my neck line. Okay, so we have a very beautiful neckline going on here. So I connected that point to the allowance so that everything is precise. The 1 inch is equal even on the allowance point. Okay, so after doing this, the next thing I went ahead to do is from that line I marked my shoulder point at 8.5 inches. Okay, I also did that at the bust point so everything is precise. Guys, if my voice is shaking or I'm mumbling, see, I'm just recuperating. I'm seriously trying to do this video for you guys. I also went ahead to insert my shoulder slant at 1/2 inch. Then from that point I marked my bust measurement divided by 4 plus 1 inch for easy allowance because this is a lapel jacket, and I went ahead to insert my armhole curve. Okay, so after inserting my armhole curve for my half blouse, I marked my waist measurement divided by 4 plus 1 inch is allowance. Okay, and also at the hem I marked my hips measurement divided by 4. Okay, if you want to add 1 inch ease allowance, is optional to you at the hips. Okay, so after doing this I went ahead to connect my markings together, right? So this is what we have going on here. So guys, from the top I marked where that point starts from at 9 inches. So for the front you can do your nipple point, okay, but for the back it is standard 9 inches from the top. Okay, then I went ahead to mark my that point, okay, at 4 inches, right? You guys know that that point starts from the top and from the side. So from the top for the back is standard 9 inches and from the side it is 4 inches. So I went ahead to mark those, and at that point I marked 1/2 inch on both sides and I connected my markings together. Okay, so after connecting my markings together, guys, this is what we have here. This is what the dart is looking like. It's looking beautiful, sitting pretty. Now from the top I marked 3 inches at my armhole curve. Okay, I marked 3 inches at my armhole curve and I just connected my armhole to my dart point to my armhole curve, and which is giving me a princess dart. Okay, of course I made sure that I extended the curve line by at least 1 inch. Okay, Of course, you do more than 1 inch so that you can mark it out. I marked 1 inch there, and I connected it to my armhole. Okay, connected it to my armhole point. And guys, this is what we have here for the back. Okay, so now the next thing I went ahead to do is I went ahead to take the distance between those 2 points, and I added it back to the pattern because you guys know we are going to cut it out. I also did that for the hem as well. And after doing this, I went back and I added 1 inch sewing allowance for this pattern. Okay, so I added 1 inch sewing allowance for this pattern, and I connected my markings together. Guys, if you've watched up to this point and you enjoyed this video, please give this video a thumbs up. My channel is really struggling. Please help me, give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment. Okay, so after drafting, this is what we have here. I went ahead to highlight it with my marker so you guys understand what's going on here. And after cutting, this is what we have here. And guys, this is how to draft your lapel pattern. Okay, your lapel jacket pattern or lapel blazer pattern, anyone you want to call it. A video on how to draft a basic sleeve for this pattern will be coming up, and also a video on how to draft a lapel collar will be coming up as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.